Before the gods took form, before Ra's eye burned across the waters, before the first name was spoken into time, there was silence. And from that silence, a shimmer, a breath, a ripple on the surface of stillness. They say he emerged not from womb, but from thought. A spark of pure awareness coalesced beneath the cold glow of the moon. He was not born of flesh, but of language, a god not of thunder or fire, but of sound, of symbol, of structure. Thoth, Jehudi, Lord of the Holy Word, the voice in the dark, the ibis-headed one, eyes reflecting stars, feathers wet with night. He was there when the world was shaped, not as warrior, but as witness, not as creator, but as scribe of creation itself. While others battled and bled, he recorded, measured, balanced. They say the moon itself bowed before him, that he walked its arc across the sky, not as light, but as pattern. Not chaos, but calculation. In the stillness between sunrises, he counted the cycles, spoke the numbers, named the stars as they blinked into being. His words did not echo, they remained, fixed, sacred. To speak as Thoth was to make a mark upon time. And though other gods ruled in gold and war, Thoth ruled in silence, through tablets, scrolls, glyphs etched on stone and spirit. He was the architect of knowledge, the quiet engineer of reality. And he did not vanish when temples fell. He did not fade when his name was forgotten by the crowds, because he was never a statue, never a crown, never a throne. He was the principle beneath all thrones, the order behind all spells, the geometry that remains when belief crumbles. And so, in moonlight and margins, he waits, still present, still writing, not gone, not even distant, because some gods rule and others remember. He remembers all. They say the world began with a word, not shouted, not commanded, but spoken softly, deliberately, like ink laid on sacred scroll. And that voice was Thoth's. For before the sun first burned, before the Nile carved her silver thread through the dust, before man stood upright beneath the gaze of gods, there was language. Not just sounds, not just breath, but intention given form. Thoth did not wield a sword. He wielded the glyph, the line, the curve, the spoken symbol that unfolded into reality. Creation was not a thunderclap. It was a sentence, and Thoth was its first speaker. Each thing in existence he named. The wind he named it. The flame he named it. The space between stars he gave it meaning. And in doing so, he gave it place. In the great Heliopolitan myth, as Atum rose from the waters of chaos and birthed air and moisture, earth and sky, Thoth stood in the margin, recording, balancing, translating for the cosmos itself what had just occurred. He did not create the first act. He gave it structure, law, sequence. Ma'at was born through him, not merely balance, but truth structured into motion. The sun would rise, not by chance, but because Thoth had measured the day. The moon would wax and wane, not as a mystery, but as a rhythm he carved into the sky. And when speech turned to spell, he was there too. Every priest, every ritual, every invocation that called to the divine echoed through Thoth's presence. Because he was not just the god of words, he was the space in which words became sacred. And yet, his speech did not dominate. It did not demand. It shaped. To speak like Thoth is not to shout into the void. It is to listen first, to hear the contours of silence and draw meaning from the dark like water from a well. Even the gods feared his tongue, for his words could calm storms or unmake destinies. He did not shout. He simply named the truth and let the world bend around it. In temple sanctuaries, where scribes dipped reeds into pools of ink, they called to him not as a god far away, but as a presence at their elbow. He was there in every mark on papyrus, every spell inscribed into tomb walls. Every time a priest whispered a phrase and fire obeyed, that was Thoth speaking again through another voice. He was the mouth behind all mouths, the quill in every hand, the meaning behind every sacred sound. They carved him with the head of an ibis, long-beaked, elegant, patient, for the ibis watches the waters, stands motionless until the exact moment of movement. So too did Thoth wait for the right words, not to speak more, but to speak precisely. He taught that words are not tools, they are keys, and in the wrong hands, they unlock ruin. But in the right heart, with the right stillness, they become bridges to the eternal. And so, long after temples turned to dust, after scrolls were burned, after names were forgotten, his voice remains. In the pause before you speak, in the line you hesitate to write, in the truth you almost name, but choose instead to carry in silence. He waits there, because Thoth does not leave, he does not die. He only waits for someone wise enough to speak what was never meant to be shouted, only understood. There is a hall, deep beneath the world of men, a hall not made of stone, but of judgment. Its pillars are endless, its air is still, and at its center, a scale. Not a scale of gold, nor brass, but something older, balanced not by mechanics, but by principle. Here, the heart is weighed, not in metaphor, not in dream, but truly, finally, against a single feather, the feather of Ma'at, truth, order, harmony. And standing beside that scale, still as moonlight on black water, is Thoth. He does not speak, not yet, he only observes. Because his duty is not vengeance, not mercy, but recording. When the dead enter the hall of two truths, they carry the sum of their life in the silence of their chest, their heart, heavy or light, knotted or clear. And Anubis, the guardian of thresholds, takes that heart and places it upon the scale. On the other side, the single perfect feather. And Thoth watches, impartial, unmoving. He does not sway with emotion. He does not flinch from the condemned. He does not cheer the pure. He simply writes. In his hand, a reed pen. In the other, a scroll unrolling endlessly. Every truth, every lie, every cruelty, and every act of kindness, it is already known to him. Because Thoth is not only the god of words, he is the keeper of what has truly happened. Not what was claimed, not what was believed, but what was. No one deceives him. No one misleads the moon. And when the scale tips, when the heart is found heavier than truth, the creature waits. Amit, devourer of the unworthy, half lion, half hippo, half crocodile, all hunger. But Thoth does not look to her. He looks to the scroll. He records the verdict. He seals the moment. He marks it into eternity. Because memory, divine memory, must be kept. He is the scribe of the soul. But when the heart is light, when the soul has walked with balance, spoken no falsehood, honored the sacred order, then Thoth's gaze softens, and he nods, a gesture as ancient as time, a signal that the soul may pass into the field of reeds, the eternal rest. And once more he writes, not as reward, not as praise, but as truth, because that is his gift, to bear witness, to keep the order that even gods must obey. Feathers, hearts, silence, stars, all measured, all written, all remembered. Even in death, there is no escaping Thoth, because even the soul must be spoken into place. And he is the one who names it, files it, seals it in the vault of time. He does not punish, he does not save. He simply ensures that what is remains, and what was false is forgotten. So the stars may rise in the right order, so the sun may return each morning, so the sacred cycle may remain intact. This is Thoth, feather bearer, scribe of the just, judge of the unseen. Not with gavel, but with ink. Not with wrath, but with precision. And the dead do not fear him, not if they have lived in truth, because he does not forget, he does not distort, he does not leave. He only watches and writes. Some stories are not told. They are whispered, between breaths, between centuries, hidden beneath temple stones, etched into no known tongue, guarded not by locks, but by silence itself. This is where the Emerald Tablets live, not on shelves, not in libraries, but in the space between belief and memory. And the one who keeps them is Thoth, not as God, not as ibis-headed scribe, but as the guardian of forbidden knowing. The tablets, they shimmer in myth, said to be green as the Nile in floodlight, hard as cosmic diamond, and inscribed with knowledge too vast for minds that fear. Not written in ink, but frequency, vibration, symbol as structure, sound as architecture. The words upon them, they do not merely inform, they transform. To read is to remember. They say, to remember who you were before you had a name. The tablets speak of many things, the unity of all that is, the laws that bind the stars, the secrets of transmutation, not just of metal into gold, but of soul into light. As above, so below. Not just a phrase, a law. One known first by Thoth and never forgotten. Some say he wrote them before Egypt was Egypt, before Atlantis fell, before time coiled into calendars. Some say he carved them in a chamber beneath the paws of the Sphinx, that to this day, the earth still hums with their echo. Others claim he never wrote them at all, that they are him crystallized, condensed into word. But the question is not, are they real? The question is, why are they always hidden? Because these are not teachings to be read, they are to be earned. Their truth does not bend for curiosity, only for initiation. And initiation demands silence, solitude, suffering, sacrifice. It is not about learning new things, it is about unlearning the false ones, peeling away the noise until the words can speak through you rather than to you. And Thoth he waits for those who come not seeking power, but remembrance. He does not test with riddles, he tests with stillness. Can you sit in not knowing? Can you silence the voice that always wants more? Because when the seeker is empty, the tablets begin to glow, not with light, but with recognition. They are not texts, they are mirrors. And Thoth is both the reflection and the gatekeeper. He watches all who approach the threshold. Some he turns away with silence alone. But to the worthy he offers not answers, but better questions. And once you begin to see, not with eyes, but with understanding, you realize the tablets are not objects. They are layers within you. And Thoth, he never hid them. He simply waits for you to remember where you left them. Time. It moves like a river, they say. But rivers meander. They shift. They flood and vanish. Time, as Thoth conceived it, is not a river. It is a structure, a wheel of precision, a spiral etched in light, turning through eternity. He did not merely observe time. He built it. He measured its breadth, divided its limbs, named its phases. Before clocks, before calendars, before sundials carved shadows into stone, there was Thoth, marking the rhythm of the stars on the skin of the sky. The moon was his compass. Its wax and wane, its silver eye blinking in cycles became his glyph, not chaos, but pattern. He watched how tides moved with the moon, how birth followed dark, how madness rose with fullness, and he recorded. But he did more than record. He assigned meaning. The months, the days, the intercalary times between worlds. He gave names to the spaces where others only saw repetition. He created the first calendar, not to bind life, but to harmonize it. The flood of the Nile, the rising of Sirius, the planting and reaping, the mourning and the mating, all had their place, because Thoth gave them order. To the ancients, he was not just a god, he was the very architecture of existence. They built temples not just on land, but in time, oriented not only to the cardinal directions, but to solstices, equinoxes, stellar alignments. Because time was not invisible, time was divine space, and Thoth was its architect. His tools were not hammers, but symbols, not stone, but silence shaped into sequence. Where others lived by fate, he offered rhythm, the sacred number, the sacred hour, the moment when ritual opens the veil. Even now, long after pyramids lost their shine, after modern clocks forgot the moon, Thoth's design persists. In the circadian pulse of your cells, in the hormonal tides that shape your moods, in the sleepless hour before dawn when the veil grows thin, he is in the tempo of breath, the drumbeat of the heart, the sacred geometry of sleep and waking. He is in the pause between seconds that we pretend doesn't exist. Because true time is not about numbers, it is about alignment. And when you feel off, when your life spins without direction, it is not chance. You have fallen out of the geometry that Thoth etched into the world. Return to breath. Return to night. Mark the moons. Walk with rhythm. Not to worship time, but to walk with it. Because he still watches the wheel, still turns the gears, still listens for those who remember that time, is not to be managed, but entered. And once you step inside his temple, the temple of hours and orbits and omens, you will find it has no walls, no end, no beginning. Only presence, measured by a god who refused to vanish with the ticking of man's machines. Most gods remain where they are placed, locked in temples, sealed in myth, summoned only by priest or poet. But Thoth was never confined. He moved between realms as easily as ink moves across parchment. Not bound to heaven, not trapped in the underworld, not chained to the earth. He walked between, and because of that, he was feared and needed. In the realm of the living, he whispered in the minds of scribes, guided the hands of mathematicians, breathed inspiration into lawgivers and astronomers. Where there was pattern, he lingered. Where there was chaos, he carved symmetry. In dreams, he appeared clothed in shadow and light, not to frighten, but to show the soul that it too is layered. He taught that this world is not the only one, that behind the veil of waking life lies the duat, the place of passing, of judgment, of becoming. And there too, Thoth walks. By Anubis's side, he watches the weighing of the heart. By Osiris's throne, he records each soul's final truth. But he does not stay there, nor does he only watch from the sky. He is in the in-between, in the liminal hour before dawn, in the split second between thought and word, in the quiet between inhale and exhale. Thoth is found in thresholds, places where energy shifts, where realities blur. Cave mouths, doorways, birth, death, ecstasy, madness. Because these are the cracks through which the sacred leaks in. And only a god who walks between worlds can guide you through such spaces, without losing you to them. Initiates knew this. They called upon him not with incense and sacrifice, but with silence, with attention. They knew he could speak across dimensions, and that what he offered was not comfort, but clarity. Thoth teaches the traveler to hold many truths, to exist in paradox, to be both fire and stillness, to descend without despair, to ascend without arrogance. He walks through dream and through reason, through ritual and through breath. And when all other gods have departed, when the illusion has cracked, When your self dissolves in initiation or death, it is Thoth who appears, not with judgment, not with reward, but with a single word, a name, your name, true and unspoken. The one you carried before birth, the one you will carry beyond form. Because he is not a god of temples, he is the god of passages. And to know him is to walk between all things and never lose your center. He does not wait on a throne, he walks among thresholds. He waits for the moment you finally ask, what lies beyond this world? And then you find he has already been walking beside you. He began with a quill. He ended with the cosmos. Thoth at first was only a recorder, a witness, the keeper of divine law, of sacred language, of balance drawn in ink. But something shifted. The more he wrote, the more he understood. And the more he understood, the more he shaped. A scribe watches, a sorcerer bends. And Thoth became both. He learned the rhythm of cause and effect, not just to observe it, but to steer it. Not with force, but with word. Not with violence, but with vibration. What is a spell, after all, but a sentence so precise it alters reality? What is a glyph, but a symbol so alive it breathes into matter? This was Thoth's true magic. Not illusion, not trickery, but alignment. The art of placing the right sound in the right shape at the right moment. To command the elements was not to dominate them, but to understand their names and to speak those names with truth. He knew the hidden geometry in sound. He saw how letters were not just symbols, but seeds. He knew how to plant them in silence, in time, in flesh. And so the priests came, the initiates came, the seekers of knowledge whose questions could not be answered by temples or kings. They came to him, or rather, to what he had become, because by then, Thoth was no longer just a god. He was a path, an initiatory force that lived inside the practice of sacred knowledge. The Greeks would later call him Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great, not because of title, but because of function. Philosopher, priest, magician, he became the patron of the Hermetic tradition, of alchemy, of astrology, of theurgy. He whispered through coded texts, emerald tablets, rituals performed in silence, with stars overhead and candles burning in forgotten chambers. The adepts didn't worship him, they studied him, or rather, they studied through him. Because Thoth was not a god to be praised, he was a current to be entered. The Emerald Tablets did not ask for belief, they demanded transformation. Make of the body a temple, make of the mind a mirror, make of the soul a flame. This was his teaching, not salvation, not obedience, but unveiling, to become what you were before you were named. And so, the magician lights the incense, draws the circle, speaks the words, not to summon power, but to remember it. To become a scribe again, a scribe of one's own destiny, to speak like Thoth, to write like Thoth, to create like Thoth. And in those moments, those quiet, trembling moments, where intention meets vibration, he returns. Not in form, not in flash, but in presence. Because Thoth never truly left. He simply waits for the one who no longer wants control, only clarity. And when you ask not, how do I rule, but how do I align, then you will feel him. The sorcerer, the scribe, the architect of sacred order, etching, even now, new spells into the silence you have only just begun to hear. Most gods fade when their temples collapse, when their names are no longer spoken, when their symbols are broken or sold or forgotten. They dissolve into myth, into memory, into dust. But not Thoth. He did not vanish when the last papyrus crumbled. He did not retreat when empires fell. He did not flicker out when science declared the gods were dead. Because he was never just a god. He was a principle, an essence, a current beneath language, a pulse inside logic, a silence behind truth. You cannot erase what underlies everything. He was not carved into stone, he was carved into structure itself. Wherever thought becomes form, wherever intention takes shape, wherever symbols are aligned with unseen laws, there he is. He moved quietly through Hellenistic texts masquerading as Hermes. He echoed in alchemical symbols, the Ouroboros, the triangle, the seven metals, the transmutation of base to divine. He whispered through grimoires, through medieval diagrams, through the fevered dreams of Renaissance magi, trying to remember what they had never quite known. He breathed through the Kabbalists, wrote through the Rosicrucians, shimmered behind the veil of the Golden Dawn, stood silently in Masonic halls, where initiates traced symbols on black and white floors without fully knowing whose hand had first drawn them. Thoth did not leave. He only changed form. Because a god of the written word does not fear forgetting. He knows that every silence is an opportunity to write again. He knew what the others didn't, that temples fall, that worship fades, that golden statues will one day wear the face of the dust. But truth, structured truth, will wait. And when a new seeker builds a new shrine, whether with brick or with thought, Thoth returns. In books, in equations, in operating systems, in sacred geometry, and in the digital code we still don't fully understand. He is there in the symbols that order your days, in the glyphs you type into your glowing screens, in the silent logic that tells your machines what to do. He is there every time language tries to reach beyond itself. Because he is not gone, he is simply folded into the design, waiting, not to be worshipped, not to be obeyed, but to be recognized. And when you pause, just briefly, between question and answer, between one word and the next, you may hear him, the God who never raised a sword, the God who never took a throne, the God who never needed to shout, because Thoth never needed to leave. He simply became everything we cannot stop trying to understand. You don't need temples to find him, not anymore. You don't need stone altars or golden statues. You don't need incense or sacred chants, though he won't mind them. Because Thoth still speaks, quietly, everywhere. He speaks in the rhythm of your breath as you write something true. He speaks in the silence just before you choose the right word. He speaks in the stillness that enters the room when you read something that feels older than the page it rests on. He speaks when the equation balances and your mind quiets with wonder. He speaks through patterns in nature, the spiral of a galaxy, the architecture of a seashell, the geometry of snow. Not loudly, never loudly, because truth doesn't shout, it resonates. And if you listen, you'll notice he is not behind you, not above you, not waiting on the edge of some myth to be rediscovered. He is inside the act of knowing, inside the pulse of meaning that moves through symbol. He is in the moment you realize that thought, real thought, is sacred. Not just data, not noise, but intention made visible. He is in the mirror you hold up to yourself when you ask, what is real? What am I here to do? And the answer doesn't come as words, but as stillness, as awareness, as alignment. In that moment, you are not merely a seeker, you are a scribe, writing yourself into the great scroll of the cosmos. And Thoth watches, not as a god looking down, but as presence flowing through you. He does not demand belief. He does not want worship. He wants you to remember what you already carry. The sacred within thought, the truth behind symbol, the magic within precision. He still speaks in dreams you cannot explain, in synchronicities that leave you breathless, in the sudden clarity that falls like moonlight on a sleepless night. He speaks when you dare to name something for what it really is. He speaks when you hold back words because they would not serve truth. He speaks when you begin to measure your life not in years but in alignment. And he will speak again when you are silent enough to hear him. Not with a voice, but with a pattern, with a knowing, with the sense that something ancient, precise, and deeply alive just passed through you. He is the God of what endures, of what remembers, of what aligns. Thoth still speaks, and in some quiet, hidden way, you always knew he never stopped.